Let's welcome in NFL expert Ryan Wilson here. So the Texans, Ryan, once again without C.J. Stroud. Look, they're taking on the Titans, who have the worst record in the NFL. They're still favored by 5.5. But what does this mean for the Texans come Sunday?
Hey, Manny, good to see you. The good news is that they won last week, as you talked about, in that miraculous fourth quarter comeback. And on top of that, you're playing the worst team in the NFL. So you can get by with Davis Mills. He needs to play better than he did last week, no doubt about it. But you can lean on that defense. We know that the Titans are going to struggle to move the ball. We know they struggle to stop folks on defense. And if you can just get through this game, then you get to your bye. And then you have the Buffalo Bills. And hopefully by that point, C.J. Stroud can be healthy because, look, man, he's been up and down since his rookie season. The last 2 years haven't been perfect, and he needs to be at his best when they face the Bills team coming off an embarrassing loss to Miami. So one more week to get healthy. Don't overlook the Titans, but Davis Mills certainly should be able to handle that in a divisional matchup, and then you regroup, and a week from now you face Buffalo.
Right, this breaking news came in just before we did the segment, but it does lead into it, talking about, quarterbacks still in the rookie contract. So even though C.J. Stroud is right now, a couple years into the NFL, he's still on that rookie contract. Ryan Renner on CBS Sports.com gave C.J. Stroud a D+. We're going to go through some of these quarterbacks, ask you your feelings on them, if you agree with the grade or not. So C.J. Stroud, with Mike Renner giving him a D+ for where he is so far. What do you think about that?
That feels a little tough. And look, CJ's rookie season, what was the conversation? Why didn't the Panthers draft CJ Stroud over Bryce Young? That's how well CJ played. He and Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator at the time, were on the same page. They went their separate ways. CJ, ended up winning that, and Bobby Slowick was fired. The offensive coordinator hasn't worked out in version 2, and that's a concern. I think part of the issue is the offensive line struggle. The running game has yet to be consistent in C.J. Stroud's tenure, and I would imagine there are 15 teams, 12 to 15 teams that would take C.J. Stroud right now and make it work. So D+ feels a little tough, but he certainly has not lived up to those rookie expectations, so I understand that as well. The other thing is that quarterback class from 2 years ago, or 2023, I should say, not looking great. Bryce, C.J., Anthony Richards lost his job to Indiana Jones, as it were, and Will Levis has not played this season because of a shoulder injury.
He did live up to the rookie expectations, just only in his rookie season, maybe not the past 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on here. Let's talk about Drake Maye. You know our producer, Noah, and I go upstairs today, and this little guy is sitting there in his Patriots uniform. I have not seen this man in all the years that I have worked here wear a Pats uniform. Sure enough, he has Drake Maye on the back. Mike Renner giving him an A+. Hard to disagree with that, Ryan.
First off, shout out to Amanda Garrett for calling Noah little guy. I appreciate that. And I do wonder if producer Noah and producer Boney, also a Patriots fan, are going to fight over that jersey. Maybe producer Boney can wear the Will Campbell jersey, his left tackle first-round pick. He's playing well. A+, I'm not going to push back too far on that because here's how good Drake Maye has been playing. A lot of credit obviously goes to him, to first-year coordinator for the 5th time, it feels like, Josh McDaniel. Mike Vrabel is crushing it as a head coach, about to win 8 straight in his first year on the job in New England. Drake Maye is one of the best deep ball passers in the NFL. He can win with his legs. We've seen that consistently. He needs to avoid taking some of those big hits that we've seen him take. But it is hard to argue with anything that he has done this year. And he is playing so well, Amanda, that he is the best quarterback in that draft class from a year ago, where he spent a lot of time talking about Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams. Bo Nix played well as a rookie in Sean Payton's offense. And here we are. Drake Maye, far and away, is exceeding what every one of those quarterbacks is doing, including the Jaden Daniels, by the way, that took the Commanders deep into the playoffs a year ago.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Heading into next season, though, what's to say we don't see what we saw with C.J. Stroud and Jaden Daniels? Because right now I'm a little worried about those second-year quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's more in the same conversation as Jaden Daniels, in that you're taking unnecessary hits that put you at risk injury-wise. Because Josh McDaniels, as long as Josh McDaniels wants to be the offensive coordinator, he will be the offensive coordinator. You do think perhaps the ship has sailed and him getting a 3rd opportunity to be a head coach, and sometimes coordinators are really good at doing that. And if Josh stays in New England with Drake Maye, this offense is going to get even better because they don't even have a ton of weapons on the outside. He's doing this with Stephon Diggs, post 30 with the post ACL, with guys like Kayshon Boutte, Pop Douglas. If you get a legit #1 receiver receiver in there, then this offense looks even better. And I think the defense as it is really good, and they have an opportunity to get better in the offseason as well. So the injuries concerns are the primary ones, not so much the play calling and the ability to do the things we've seen him do in year 2 as a quarterback.
Somebody else who also needs to listen to that advice, Jackson Dart. Let's move on here. Let's talk about Bo Nix in his second year. Look, first year lit up everything. The second year we have seen a regression. We have seen a lot of troubles. Look, the Broncos, though, they're still sitting on top of the AFC West. They're sitting at 8-2. The grade that was given for Bo Nix is let me find it here because I did not write it down, C-. Thank you so much. So passing grade, I mean, is that a little harsh, or do you think that's fair?
Well, the interesting thing is that Mike Renner was higher on Bo Nix coming out than most anyone else that I can recall. So this is a grade given with much thought and perhaps some hesitation. I think it's a little harsh. But the reality is Bo Nix has not played well week in and week out. He struggles with completion percentage, and that's a pretty important metric when you're a quarterback. We know what he can do with his legs and out of structure. He's pretty good in the red zone, but the deep ball isn't where it needs to be. He has a ton of turnovers, and that's obviously not going to work. And I think he is benefiting by being in that Sean Payton offense. But that's why Sean Payton and George Payton drafted him, because they knew who they were going to get in large part. If he were somewhere else, maybe it's not working quite as well. I don't think there's a situation where it might work better than where it currently is. So I'm not going to quibble too much. C- feels a tad harsh, but if you told me it was a C or C+, that sounds about right, because it's hard to get too excited about the way Bo Nix has played, because this team in a lot of ways, man, especially with the defense, is winning in spite of Bo Nix, not necessarily because of him, and that's not going to be sustainable over the second half of the season if you're trying to make a playoff run. I'm
still a big fan of Bo Nix. Look, I've covered him. I sat down, I talked to him. I like the grit that he has, but also for people, look, he's not that cocky. He does want to learn. He's going through all the motions to get better every single day. Okay, Cam Ward, this is a hard one to grade. Mike gave him a C-. It is the worst team in the NFL. He was the #1 pick overall. How hard is it to try to give Cam Ward a grade?
It's impossible. And C-, I'll go with that. You could go higher or lower. And to your larger point, it's hard to tell. And, you know, I go back and forth with our buddy Pete Prisco, who's the biggest Will Levis fan on planet Earth, and he's trying to convince me that Will Levis is playing just as good as Cam Ward did as a rookie. And here's where we ended the conversation. Put Patrick Mahomes on this current Titans team. How much better are they? And Pete came back and said, about a half a game or 1 game better. That's all you need to know. If you can't win more games than you lose with Patrick Mahomes, your quarterback, whoever he is, does not have a chance. And that's where Cam Ward is. He does a lot of things really well under some trying circumstances week in and week out. Does he look more gun-shy now than he did in week 1? Absolutely. But let me sack you 55 times and see if you feel better or worse about your job. And that's where Cam Ward is. So I think they have a lot of things to fix. The offensive line could use a few players. There are no real playmakers at the skill position who consistently get open outside of some of the rookies. And the defense has been porous, to say the least. So this feels okay. I'm okay with it. If you're going to give them a C-, I'm not going to push back too hard. But they need about 10 to 15 more players to make this team competitive a year from now, and we'll see what that looks like. But Cam Ward is not the bigger problem in Tennessee.
I actually wrote down the line earlier before we found out about C.J. Stroud. It did move by a point there. So Texans now 5.5 instead of 6.5 at the Titans on Sunday at 1 p.m. Jr. Okay, Michael Penix Jr. Mike continues to be a very hard grader. He's giving him a D. He's 3-5 this season, 4-7 overall as the Falcons starter. How do you feel about Michael Penix Jr.?
I would go a little bit higher than this, but not much higher. It would be C-, best case. Michael Penix Jr. hasn't played a ton of football. I think he only played 3 games last year, if I recall correctly, if not many more than that. But it has been up and down this year. And, you know, we know about the 2 ACLs and the 2 shoulder injuries. Before he got to Washington at Indiana, he was no more of a runner than a pocket passer. And we haven't seen that athleticism this season. I would like to see a little bit more than that while also avoiding the big hits. That hasn't been there. He's not afraid to push the ball down the field, but his deep ball completion percentage has not been great. And as Mike notes, if he's not playing on time, once the play breaks down, we're not seeing some of those out-of-structure plays that we saw him have success with in college. So I won't push back too much on this grade. You certainly wanted to see more from Michael Penix Jr., especially because Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot did a great job in the draft of fixing that defense and getting it further further along than it had been in recent years. So not opportunity wasted, but opportunity for growth over the second half of the season for Michael Penix Jr., given how well that defense has played.
Falcons have now lost 4 in a row. They're hosting the Panthers this weekend. So speaking of the Panthers, we got to talk about Bryce Young. He got an F, and we know that Pete Prisco would give him the exact same thing. Pete Prisco probably would have given him an F after game 1, his rookie season. What would you grade him?
Yeah, I suppose this follows in terms of Mike's grades because he was pretty low on C.J. Stroud. I would give them a little higher for both. But look, Bryce Young is not crushing it, and that's just the reality. His rookie season was forgettable. Frank Reich got fired. Last season, he got benched in week 2 for Andy Dalton, and had Andy Dalton not gotten in that freak car accident, maybe Bryce still isn't back on the field. To Bryce's credit, he played better over the last few months of last season when he did get back. This year has been a roller coaster. They went out and got him Ted McMillan, who's playing like a #1 wide receiver. The running game is legit. The defense is a little better. But it fits and starts with the way that Bryce Young has played. Is he playing like the #1 overall pick? Nope, he is not. And you could argue that, if there were a redraft or were he coming out in this draft class, I think the lessons of guys that are 5'10", 175 have to be so special to make them the first overall pick. And Bryce is just not that. Is he a replacement level player? Probably not even. So I understand the frustration with the F grade or the reality of it, if you want to look at it that way. Bryce has to play better. He has not done it. And again, you have to be frustrated if you're a Panthers fan because you need to see more from your #1 overall pick, fair or not.
So you've been a kinder grader. I do have one more, but I want just kind of a quick answer on each. We don't need to dive into it. J.J. McCarthy, what would you give a grade for him? And his alter ego 9, what would the grade be for him?
JJ is one of the greatest guys I've ever had the opportunity to meet. I'll give him an A+ off the field. On the field, I'll give him a C-. I know Mike was a little tougher on him, but he hasn't played a ton of football. He's been injured.
Ryan, we appreciate it. Hang on, we're going to talk to you here about some games we've got coming up this weekend with the First Pick podcast. Ryan Wilson is the host of that. Make sure to tune in.